All right, so let's look back here and see how we did. So we should have gotten 6 for x. We go back and plug it in. We're going to get the length of our mid-segment is 23. And the length for the other base is going to be 36. So the difference between these two is 13. And if you add 23 and 13, that gives us 36. So we know that we did it correctly. So let's finish up the second half of this lesson, the kites. A kite is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of consecutive sides congruent and no opposite sides congruent. If a quadrilateral is a kite, then its diagonals are perpendicular. So this is the only property they give us. But I want you to make a note about something here. This long diagonal that splits our 2 congruent side lengths. So if I drew this here, then this is a side congruent to a side, another side congruent to another side, and by the reflexive property, this side is congruent to itself, which means that we have 2 congruent triangles. So when we know they're congruent, that means that this diagonal bisects this angle A and angle C. It splits them in half, they're congruent. That also means that angle B would be congruent to angle D. So our third angles would also be congruent. So not only are our diagonals perpendicular, but our longer diagonal will cut this into 2 congruent triangles. So this will help us later when we're setting up and solving for missing angle measures. So let's look at this. We have given angle 1, 2, and 3. Angle 1 we know is going to be a right angle because we notice in our theorem about kites is that our diagonals are perpendicular to one another. So that means that angle 1 is going to be a 90-degree angle. Now since this cuts this in half here, the longer diagonal cuts in half, that means that this side is going to be congruent to this side. So basically you have 2 congruent right triangles here and you have 2 congruent right triangles here. We did a proof of this in chapter 4. So now, if this is 52 degrees, that means angle 3 has to also be 52 degrees. Because they're the same. The longer diagonal bisects it, cuts it in half. So this is 52 here. And then to find our last angle, we can take 90 minus 52, and that gives us 38. So 38 degrees is the value of angle 2. So you guys try the next one. Find the measures of angles 1, 2, and 3. All right, so angle 1 once again is a right angle. Angle 2, we do 90 minus 54 because we knew that angle 3 has to be 36 as well because this longer diagonal bisects this in 2 congruent halves. And angle 2 here would be found by doing 90 minus 36 to get 54. All right, let's keep moving. So now we have some practice problems. In each one of these we have a trapezoid in first 2 problems, and then we have kites in problems 3, 4, 5, and 6. So pause the video now and work these out and come back and check your answers when you're done. All right, so let's take a look here at our first one. So in this case, these are supplementary angles, so the relationship between my x's is that they will add up to equal 180. So combine our like terms, you get 10x plus 20 equals 180. Subtract the 20 to get 160. Divide by 10 and that gives us 16. Go back and plug it in for this angle up here because y and this angle are the same. Those are 2 base angles. So that gives us 96 plus 20 equals 116. So the answers for x and for y are 16 and 116. Now let's look at number 2. All right, so our mid-segment is equal to half the sum of the 2 bases. So what I did is I moved the 1/2 over here by multiplying by 2. So we substitute our expressions in. and then distribute. So 2 times 2x plus 4 is going to be 4x plus 8. Combine our like terms on the right. 2x and 3x give us 5x, negative 4 and a positive 2 gives us negative 2. Solve for x by subtracting 4x from both sides and adding 2 to both sides. It gives us that x equals 10. You can always go back and plug it in to make sure. This would give us 2 times 10, which is 20, minus 4 is 16. This gives us 2 times 10 is 20, plus 4 is 24. And this gives us 30 plus 2 is 32. So the difference between 16 and 24 is 8, and 24 and 32 is 8, so we know we had it set up correctly. Now let's look at number 3. So in number 3, we could set it up 2 ways, because in this kite, we know that this segment is congruent to this one, and this segment is congruent to this segment. Both ways get you the same answer. So 4x plus 1 is equal to 17 will get you the same answer as 6x minus 3 equals 21. Solve for x, and we get both of them are equal to 4. So let's look now at number 4. We have a kite here. We know that this the diagonals are perpendicular, so there's our right angle. We have a right triangle. So if this is 90, then these two angles right here have to equal 90 as well. We don't even have to use the 3x. So we take 2x plus 10x minus 6, set it equal to 90, solve for x. X is going to equal 8. So sometimes they'll give you extra information. Many times you don't need it. In this case is one of those. And number 5. So number 5 here, this is our longer diagonal that's going to cut it into 2 congruent triangles, which means that this is going to be congruent to this over here. These two angles are congruent, and these opposite angles are congruent, our third angles. So as you can tell, we have 3x minus 5. We're going to set our x's together since we know they're congruent. Solve for x. We get 15. We go back and plug it into this. We get 2 times 15 plus 10 gives us 40. So now we can add up all 3 of these angle measures and set it equal to 180. We combine our like terms, so we add 27y and 6y to get 33. 40 and 8 gives us 48. Subtract the 48 from 180 to get 132, and when we divide by 33, we get 4. So x is equal to 15, and y is equal to 4. And our last one, number 6. This will work the same way as the last problem did. This diagonal cuts it into 2 congruent halves, so this is congruent to this. This is congruent to this. And then our last one, our third angle, is congruent to each other. So we solve for x's by setting those equal first and get 28. Go back and plug that in for one of your angle measures. You could use the bottom one here, 5x minus 15, or 4x plus 13. So I chose the 4x plus 13, so that gives us 112 plus 13 is 125. So now we add up all 3 of our angle measures, set them equal to 180. Y minus 9, 125, and y equals 180. Combine our like terms, and that gives us that y is equal to 32. So x is equal to 28 and y is equal to 32. So this concludes our lesson on trapezoids and kites.